live in an age when anyone who is just talked about been in history courses, sociology courses in colleges, in the late 50s, early 60s, always heard your instructors talking about the fact that we'd come into the age of industry and we had not kept up in terms of our socialization. So Americans were behind in multiple ways, and certainly a very literate nation. But there was no need for us to have entered the age of cybernetics with this, because there was Hilsman, the sister out of London, and other brothers out of Poland and other places. When I was in Chicago with Dr. King, it's really when I really got to know him. We could talk about being in Birmingham, but I certainly got to know Dr. King in Chicago. We always had these workshops and bring in these specialists, and there was this point when they brought in these cybernetic specialists, and it was during that conversation with cybernetic specialists for about 1 week that the question of values came from Dr. King. And he would just tell you, well, America's going to have to redefine her values. That if you're going to enter an age of cybernetics, then among the values we're going to have to redefine is the value of work. And so just being a part of that discussion and growing to understand that this is 65, 66.
That's right before there were any computers around, hardly at all, in terms of popular culture.
That's right. But looking ahead, this prophetic mind began to talk about a time to be when we would have to talk about cultural workers being workers, so that people who were grandparent.
No, I'm joking.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, good. No, please. It's very important what you're saying. I think it's apropos.
Who socialized children
Yeah.
Became the new work. That the artists who we see out on the block with their little sticks and stones, guitars or whatever, playing music, became the new work. People who are talking about spirituality, which has become very popular in the last 20 years, becomes the new work. So as we begin to talk about work, we begin also to talk about developing democratic communities. Because I think essentially what we're talking about, if you're talking about redefining values, that America has to talk about truly developing democratic communities in which all things become not so much equal as a participant in the democracy. In the same way old African communities used to work. I grew up in Mississippi and still holding on to the African traditions and the indigenous traditions. But the old African tradition was very firm. There was nobody that wasn't doing something. So the little waterhead girl who lived down the street that died when she was 10 had a head, just big like that, huge head. Could not move from her bed. But every child in the community had the responsibility of going and spending 15 to 20 minutes with her at least once a week. And that child was so philosophical. She would sit there and give us information that I don't know where she got it from. She hadn't read Socrates. She certainly didn't know anything about what was happening in Greece or Rome or any damn place else other than that porch that she sat on, unless it was raining. But that was a function of the blind man who knew that he had a purpose, or the person who had some other malformity, would get a stick and you put a nail in it and you see all day long that individual picking up any piece of paper or any piece of rubbish that might be found, because they had to participate in the community. The baby, by the time it's a year old, is on the broom, the baby sweeps the yard. So we're back to, I think, and you brought this to, and I was listening to, in fact, everybody in this room has been a part of that, a time, I think, in history when the Martin Kings and men like that and women like that who have been our modern-day prophets have to be listened to. And we have to talk about redefining all values for not just America, but for the world in terms of how we're going to treat each other if we're going to remain on this planet.
Yeah.
As living beings. Now, of course, we could turn it over to the roaches and be off on some other sojourn. We are not going anywhere. I mean, we'll still be here. We just be looking at the roaches do it from our spiritual world, as I see it. But I think that is where we have come to in the world. We've got to begin to talk about democratizing communities and giving them power, which means that a small community does take on power. I'm not a Palin, but Governor Palin. I'm not a Governor Palin. I pay less or whatever. But I am real clear that we have to come to a point where the smaller community has to be given power, and that means that corporate is going to have to give up a whole lot of power. And we've got to restructure our world if we're going to live in it. Now, if we don't choose to live in it, that's another story.
What about this idea that she brought up about ownership?
Oh,
what is your thought in terms of ownership?
The action of the corporation. See, that's what Norman Kerr.
But that's democratizing it. You can't. And it was the fifth largest engineering firm at that time in the world. Of course, by the time the late 70s came, changes in technology, the oil crisis, whatever, it probably was down almost to nothing. But the employees bought the firm.
Really?
Employee owned.
Mm-hmm.
They had management issues under employee ownership, but because it was new. But they actually owned the firm.
What firm was that? Spell it.
Michael Baker, M-I-C-H.
Where, when, what?
In Mississippi.
Mississippi. What year are you talking?
We're talking about late 70s. The employees actually take over and buy out the firm, a major engineering firm.
Yeah,
and this happens a lot around the world where employees are buying out companies.
Not really. Most all of the capital assets are owned by a tiny plutocratic
Yeah, I know,
class.
but I'm saying employees are. But more and more we're seeing this phenomenon called employee ownership.
Here's the interesting thing.
I'm going to go back here.
She's talking about people ownership, which is even
Working
better.
with Norman Kurland, who's very much into democratic ESOP, employee stock ownership program, as opposed to a plutocratic one, which we know is the leverage buyout, which usually destroys companies and gets rid of people that are working. Robert Ashford is not for the ESOPs, the employee stock ownership program. They're both binary economists. They're both recognized.
You ought to spell what that is.
I'm telling right now.
Oh, okay.
Wealth comes from two methods, labor or capital. And since technology is so increased, you can hardly even dent wealth with labor. You know, a human being can only carry so many sacks, a horse carries more, a truck carries more. Well, how much more so? We had a democratic economy when we were living in an agrarian society, because with a lot of your labor, you work your land. But that's not true anymore. So now that the technology is so advanced, you really have to rethink the capital ownership. Now, what Robert Ashford called to my attention was when I was interviewing Marshall Rosenberg about corporations, because I said, if you think of something as evil, right there you have a disconnect. So if the corporations are evil, then you don't really want to have any part of it. But I told Marshall, I said, well, don't corporations exist for the sake of profit? He said, no, they don't. Profit is a strategy for survival. A corporation exists, according to his term, as a collection of human beings, and all human beings have the same needs. One of the needs is the need to contribute. So a corporation would be a collection of people with a great need to contribute, the collective need to contribute. Now, Robert Ashford told me that that's not true legally. A corporation is not a collection of individuals. And in order to kick in the possibility to do this democratic buyout legally, to use the same institutions of the banks and the reinsurers that do it for the corporations today. Today, if a corporation wants to do a project, they don't sell stock on Wall Street. Wall Street is just sort of a crap game that's run on commissions. It has very little to do with how ideas and companies get funded and fueled and go along. So if a corporation has an idea and they need money, they borrow the money based on the earnings of the future capital. So Robert Ashford is a binary economist who worked for Lewis Kelso, who developed this in 1956, for the sake of employees being able to get a hold or get the ownership of the company based on the future earnings of the company, said that you have to take individuals into the corporate structure, and then you kick in the banks, the reinsurers, and all of the methods that corporations use. Now, I think it gets into, there's so much that I think people like you and me and the viewers or whoever will be listening to this should be encouraged to think about more deeply. Like I said to Robert, well, when Marshall Rosenberg told me this, it's because as a proponent of nonviolent communication, he's worked with Palestinians, with Israelis, he's worked with the Rwandan tribes that are, have huge animosity to each other. And so to sort of say corporations are not collections of human beings, then you wonder what really is a corporation. He talks about liability and then there's responsibility. So liability means it's a way, I guess, that you can do things without personal risk. But sometimes I think you need to take personal risk. I think maybe some of the problems today is nobody puts themselves on the chopping block. And I think there's so many issues that are coming up where people have to say, I'm going to stand up for this. No matter what the personal cost is for me, this is the right thing to do. Now, are the corporations doing that? And if they're not, that's what I think we have to take a look at. Because I think within the corporations, there will be people that realize, for the sake of moving humanity on like you're talking about, somebody's going to have to step up to the plate. And hopefully more than somebody. We're going to have many somebodies to say this is the right thing to do.
But do you think it's regular, the crisis that we're in now,
What's that?
this crisis real, I imagine, that we're in,
Well, the crisis
going through
we're
right
in now was predictable. You could have seen it. But the thing is why has it gotten to be this case? Like, I did some videotape at the Players Club, put it up on YouTube. Somebody called me today and said that because I had more than 20 seconds worth of some people singing who were involved in this theater union, you have to take it down. And she really commiserated with me. And I said, you know, really, I'm not harming any of these actors getting a job, you know, because part of the time the waiters in front, you know, it's not like I'm trying to capitalize on it. But everybody's so frightened of the union, they don't want to say anything about it. And I said, and as a result of these copyrights, now you've got some of the masters. I went to the Friars Club too, and someone said, not only is an income stream not available, not even to the actors, but even maybe to some Americans who used to own it before. You can't use them. You know, Jack Benny and a lot of these masters of entertainment. Their work is inaccessible. It's tied up. So not only is the income stream gone, what about the goodwill? There's such hatred abroad towards Americans that could be alleviated if they saw some of these masters of humor and entertainment. And why isn't it happening? So I think, you know, we need courageous people on all levels. The lady I was talking to didn't want to be that person. And I said, look, I'll just take it down because I've got other battles to fight. But, you know, it breaks my heart. You know, it was a beautiful event at the Players Club. And I didn't want to spend hours re-editing it just to sliver off a couple 10 seconds of somebody on stage.
But you raised this question. You had that program with, what's his name, Webster.
Today?
Yeah.
Paul,
You had a
John
program
Galino.
carried, and he's charging that Barack Obama is a fascist.
Well,
He thinks he's a fascist
No, no,
because
no,
he's
no.
not addressing this
Hang on.
issue that she raises and you raise.
No, this is a little different. It's like Louis Kelso said in 1984, if there's 20 to 1 plutocratic buyouts versus a democratic buyout, this was in 84, he said this bodes very ill for fascism. Not that the people themselves have fascistic aspirations. Probably the people who are doing these leverage buyouts never even imagined them to be a Mussolini or whatever. But they're creating the platform for that to happen. So if what he was saying is that people will swallow what Obama says because of the beautiful rhetoric.
Yeah, he's an orator.
Whereas if you have somebody following in the wake of Bush who's now so hated, they're not going to accept it straight away. And so what fascism starts, and he was doing an analysis of it, and John Galino, as young as he is, he was born in 69, he's very well read, and his father was in Sicily. So he saw the rise of Mussolini. It starts off in the left liberal. So they get the left liberal cover. And that's why John Galino said when they were shutting down the channels, somebody was in a Che Guevara t-shirt and the earth shoes, and you know, it looks from the outside to be also correct, so kind, so sympathetic. But in truth, who is really behind it and what are they really pushing? That's what he's talking about. For myself, I'm saddened that everybody's fighting over who's going to win the election, and they're not looking at things like capital ownership. No election in my 56 years has made any difference in my life.
Right.
But when somebody told me about cellular telephone licenses, I made $5 million. And that's a binary model. I found out that the FCC was giving licenses to any U.S. citizen. You just had to find out about it. Forbes magazine, Wall Street Journal, none of these publications was telling people about it. I happen to always listen to people who think outside of the box. But I told Robert, Robert and Norman have different viewpoints, but I said, isn't mine a binary model? Because, you know, isn't this what it was the right to broadcast a cellular signal in 13 counties in Kentucky. So if I sort of slipped in under the cracks or a loophole, doesn't that mean that we have enormous assets? Like the Time Warner cable is a huge asset, but it's not the only one. There's so many other assets that technology is affording us. Why do you not see it in the hands of more people? And the problem with having it in the hands of a few people, they can't consume that much. So if you're producing, who's going to consume it? You actually have this liberal thing that consumption is bad, it's evil, it's wrong, we need austerity, global warming. Look at the science of global warming. When I went out to Ohio, I tried to get Lonnie Tompkins and his group to come with Molly's father, who's a real scientist and at DuPont and executive. And the science is so false, they keep passing the buck up, and then the guy at the top is out of town. So nobody will actually come and debate it. But Al Gore will come, and it gets everybody frightened, and the oil's running out, and the global warming, and Manhattan's going to be all flooded. And people aren't thinking clearly, because they're not looking at the science, and the institutions aren't challenging it, because probably they're funded. So I think our responsibility, I don't see any other way out. We just have to study.
Well,
we have to do what the institutions aren't doing.
It looks now on this October 27th, Mr. Obama's going to be our president. I think it's fair to say. I mean, you always have to guard against it, make sure that happens and all that. But
do you know he's not even a U.S. citizen?
Well, I don't know about that, but he's going to. It looks like he's going to be the president. Don't we agree? I mean, it seems that way.
What makes you think he's not a U.S. citizen?
He's not. He wasn't born in this country, and they took it before Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania.
You mean
and the judge? And
the king wasn't born.
No. Obama wasn't born in the United States.
Where was Obama born?
Kenya, probably Kenya. But now it's going to the Supreme Court, so they'll consider it that way. And then there was something else.
McCain was born in Panama.
But you know, here's one possible scenario.
So you got two non-citizens.
Norman
About time.
Norman Perlman is a Jewish guy that was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, he tells me, in sort of a rough neighborhood. And he didn't bring his kids up Jewish because he didn't marry a Jewish lady. But you know who he did marry? A Japanese lady whose father was the wealthiest Japanese guy in California that was put in a concentration camp. They called them internment camps. So in terms of Jew as eternal victim, he still qualifies. And he was saying, he saw a possible scenario that under Obama and under people being so hypnotized by the rhetoric, that you could actually have some crisis, maybe 5 times worse than 9/11, and the technology's there. We don't study it. Even the 9/11 truth movement, you're not allowed to study the actual technology. They say, oh, that's not relevant. Let's just get a reinvestigation, and it'll all come about. Because you don't know the technology, you can't imagine what worse could happen. So if you've got a population terrified, what could happen is what happened when they rounded up the Japanese. You're going to round up the Muslims, you put them in the camps, and then you're going to have vigilantes, because say in the 9/11 truth movement, by suppressing the investigation, then you get these whispers, oh, the Jews did it, you know. And then because it's not really, you don't encourage real investigation, you get this misunderstanding. So you've got the Muslims in camps, you've got vigilantes going after the Jews, you've got
In America, it'll be the black folks, so you don't have to worry about that.
What's that?
Jews don't have to worry about it. America will be the black folk.
America will be.
Well, yeah, let you talk. It'll be the black folk will be the
We're
scapegoat.
already the scapegoat.
Yeah, they have been.
I don't know whether
why-
Obama must have been born in Hawaii.
Well, you know what breaks my heart, and this is why I'm really beginning to dislike even voting. Because look at the energy that we're spending talking about the difference between candidates who on a platform level, it's no different.
No.
There's hardly any difference.
No.
Obama can't promise jobs. We should be considering what you said Martin Luther King was talking about.
Oh, we have Cynthia
In
McKinney.
69. 69.
We
Yeah.
have Cynthia McKinney.
But all
Cynthia
Obama's
McKinney, I saw her down in the 9/11 Truth thing, and she was going along with the ballot initiative that is impossible to be successful. And she was so, you know,
I mean,
Well,
I
let's
think
call
we
it-
need to look a little more carefully at her because
What's
she really does offer us an awful lot. And
Talk,
we need to
talk,
look at her.
talk.
We need to talk about her campaign, and talk about her platforms.
What are
For
her
example,
platforms?
she's talking about America and becoming a development after this bailout of a public corporation for the government.
But you can't just say after the bailout.
No,
because
I'm just
it's-
mentioning the after.
No, but let
the
her talk
bailout.
for a
I'm
while.
just saying
Yeah.
it's after the
See-
bailout, she came up with that.
Oh,
But
she
you know,
did.
McKinney has been running a campaign that very much like you talks about looking for the truths and raising the real issues. McKinney is concerned about reconstructing, looking at what happened at Katrina and the Gulf Coast, what has been the African experience in this country, in every urban center where black folk are being run out along with other historic people of color communities, with gentrification. She's talking about how do we reconstruct urban centers? How do we reconstruct farm areas? She really is at another level when she begins to talk about not just reconstructing, but how do we begin to talk about real education in America? So she has a lot to offer, and I suggest that you
Yeah, but
go to
What
her
is her
conference.
attitude? Well, Coley, what's her attitude toward the idea that Obama, all he's talking about in terms of getting income into people's hands by and large is through their having a job? So that they're going to get, the assets are all going to be owned by a tiny group. That's going to continue. The assets will all be, the assets are responsible for production, but don't ever talk about how the people have to have an ownership of the capital as a way of getting income to buy milk.
Well, she's very
Why
clear.
do they? What is her attitude toward the idea that she's talking about? Is we got to expand ownership of technology rather than just jobs, because that puts us like serfs on a feudal estate with the people who own all the capital, which is increasingly responsible for the production.
You know, that's why she talks about making this public corporation piece. Well, all of the banks and everything else would be owned by the people.
Spell it out.
It's not my area.
Okay,
I'm not
okay.
gonna
I'm
try
going to
go
make
there.
it your area. I'm going to have Norman
It's very
Portland
important.
call in because he
Yeah.
worked so hard in civil rights, and he said one thing I really love about Norman is he doesn't see anyone as evil. He doesn't hold that model, and he keeps moving forward, and he really did some amazing things where he really got concrete capital ownership into the pockets of the workers. I mean, it's a legal model. It can be done. Now, Robert Ashford has some qualms about that, but I think if you and I, average people, exert ourselves, and if you and I can do that and create some TV, then anybody listening is going to learn like we're learning. And we and them can start asking tougher questions. And we will make the institutions respond to us. Because it'll be embarrassing if they don't.
Yeah, because we're going to take over.
And you know what? And you know what? I don't think we could do a worse job than's being done now.
I mean, we can't do a
What
worse
can
job.
we-
What
what
are we
can we
doing?
lose? What can we lose?
What are we doing? P2P corporations, which is the stuff that comes down to Mississippi and Alabama through the cooperative movements, Fannie Lou Hamer and all those folks who were developing people's economics at the community level. We can't do worse than we're doing now. We can't do it. We won't be sending ships to China loaded to Taiwan loaded with guns and weaponry,
Or
because
how
that's
about-
what we got to export.
how
We'll
about-
be exporting some genuine, useful things that
how
people
about
can use.
machinery? I heard in Dayton, Ohio, workers would come and just sit around in the lunchroom because the union said they had to be hired, and they were watching the machines that they worked on being bailed up and shipped out to China.
Yes.
And they just waited until the end of their contract, a couple of months, and then that was it, no job. So let's not even talk about jobs. That's not where it's at.
No, it's not.
We should be talking about leisure that's afforded through the power of the capital that needs to be distributed, because even the people at the top can only consume so much. It's in their interest. This isn't taking from Peter to pay Paul. This is a whole new paradigm. This is a really healthy economy that's growing because of our differences.
Yeah, what we're saying, it's not even so much leisure, because I think, you know, that when I see leisure,
The leisure
it means I'm free now to be creative, to really do the things that are useful for the planet.
It means the energy's there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Last night when I heard that the human body actually produces some elements that never even went in the human body, how much more so the mind, you know, when you sit down and you share ideas, you know, where is real energy coming from? It's way
But the
beyond
human mind is
oil.
we are part of the planet. We're
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, I think we tend
The real question is what's the matter, but we are matter. All right?
Yeah.
And so it's not possible that we would be made of what the planet is made of. We're the universe.
Yeah.
That's why I say the roaches may take over, we'll still be there, looking through some other form, because we're not going anywhere, baby. This is us. And I just think that it's not just that the metals that our body creates. I'm sure they do. That the body does create all kinds of stuff. But I think, you know, it's this thing up here that we call the brain, this ticker, that has stored millions of years of information.
Yeah.
And we don't come here on tabula rosa. That's why some of us are strange. By strange means that you get these young people who, from the time they're teeny tots, come in and doing calculus, telling you what's going to be happening next week, and then when it starts happening, you're like, what's wrong with that baby?
Right.
You know, that this is human. Whatever we went through that forced us to repress who we were
Right.
comes back out in a period of leisure, when it's creative leisure, free leisure, meaning leisure activity that you get after down south, people who picked up the guitars after work, or the little bag on tubs and take brushes and make noises. Were people who were now in that point where I don't have to work now. I can sit here. I'm free to do what? I'm free to create. I'm free to do all kinds of creativity. Sure, I can do cultural kind of stuff and the arts, but I'm also free to create new ideas. Josh!
Ladies and gentlemen, we announce the arrival of Joshua Jericho Volinsky. Joshua Volinsky. And he is going to get in on this. Couple things while they're making their kudos. Couple things you said, Coley, I'd like to deal with. Don't go away, honey. Just we got a little more on the tape. Let's get it done. You said a couple things, Coley. Coley, you know, and I've been thinking about it a lot and everything. And, you know, they got the weapon systems that now, if they're unleashed, I've been researching a lot, there's not going to be any human beings around to watch the cockroaches.
That's right.
No, we can destroy. No, we can destroy the entire human species within about a half an hour with the weapons that have developed now. Couldn't do it in the Second World War. Could now. Something's going on the other side of that kind of a dialectic. Something's going on in the evolution. It's something like a liberation or something, and that's what it's saying. And this thing we're going through now, with the financial system and the system that's put all the power into the hands of a few people is now being questioned. They've been down south. They got a saying, I think. Help me out if I'm wrong. A mule. You got to hit a mule upside the head with the 2x4 to get its attention. The system has now been hit upside the head, and they are looking for something different and everything. And this thing she's talking about is you got to have, it's nice to have leisure, but you can have leisure if you're unemployed, you're poor.
Amen.
Now, the thing is, the people who own all, the people, there has to be a way for people to get money in terms of the way things are produced. And we're in the swoon to the idea that you can distribute income to people by their labor, through jobs. That's all Obama's talking about. We're going to create jobs. There's no question about, and that ownership that Cynthia's talking about, some nomenclature within the government where it's going to be done or something, a piece of private property ownership of the capital assets of this planet are in the name of citizen A, and because they have that ownership, they have money coming to them, so they have the leisure to play the guitar without being a man on the plantation, if you can understand. There's a new economics that has to emerge, and it's not emerging out of the current dialectic, even with Obama. That's why Mr. What's his name says he's very likely to emerge fascistic because he hasn't got an answer that's being presented. That's what she's
if you're looking
suggesting.
for a job, you can't have an answer anyway. Because
No, but
the stuff that you're gonna make a job out is gone. Though.
Well, all right, I heard you say Mr. King said that.
Yeah.
So how in the hell are we going to get money to people? Demand money in their pocket to go buy milk and things they need to feed their kids here and in Africa and around the world.
No, why
as
do we
long
need
as
money to do it? If indeed milk is for babies, we ought to be distributing milk.
How?
If indeed
The market
becomes how the way we transport is another whole issue. It's the system you're talking about.
Yes.
But I'm saying in the rethinking, I understand where she's coming from. When she's saying that we ought to be owning.
Yes,
And
owning.
people owning.
Owning.
And I think that's all Cynthia's saying too. But what I'm saying, and I think I'll be real clear about this, that Gandhi was right when he says if people need salt, just take the damn salt.
No, okay, go on,
Right?
go on.
So at the point when we begin to understand as a people, when we break out of the box and then out of the hole around the box, and begin to say if there are human needs that have to be met, then we meet the need.
How?
Human beings are going to have to unify, because certainly the few have got control of the gun.
Are we going to be able to distribute to human beings according to need? Or in a market, is it in a market-oriented system? If we're not going to do away with the private sector and all the wonders of that, then they have to have some alternative to their production or their contribution to production as a way of them getting income other than the need. I've noticed in the Soviet Union they would do it by need, and they decided, the nomenclature, all the power in the government, decided all the people need is a half a bottle of gruel. The need thing doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, but that's because we don't seem to be developing it from the people. You see, but we keep talking about the need, and then we assign it to the smaller groups. And what I'm saying is those structures that have to be collapsed. And people have to, in turn, become responsible as groups. And that's why you democratize smaller communities. Because big communities, you can't do that with New York City. New York City is too big for us to talk about what we're talking about now. If we're going to talk about new structures, new ways of being able to share in whatever the wealth and whatever the production of everything.
Yeah, so she's running on the green ticket, right?
Yeah, she's on the green ticket.
Yeah, how's
Cynthia's
she doing?
clear.
How's she getting? A pretty good percentage?
I don't know what
Yep,
she get. But
1,
she said,
2%?
This Obama thing.
Obama's a
we're
phenomenon.
scared for two different reasons. I'm not so scared around the fascism reason, but I am scared of the fact that people are just buying because, especially black folk, are buying because the man is black.
Oh, the man's inspired. He's a transformative figure.
No,
He's
As far as
transformative.
black folk are concerned, Obama could say anything. As long as he's going to be the first, in quotes, black person in the White House, that's all you need. You say, well, what about the contract with the people? You can't have a contract right now. He'll do that after he gets in. It's a weird kind of
No, I understand.
thinking, and it's almost frightening because Cynthia has more than 200 threats on her life.
Yeah, I worry about that a lot.
She has more than Cynthia McKinney.
Yeah.
More than 200
Well.
threats on her life. Nothing's been done about it.
How about it? Do you worry about the fact that, you remember what they did to Mr. King? What they did,
Yes, I should.
You worry that there's going to be...
One of my friends,
You didn't see the news tonight?
What's the news tonight, Larry? Pop in.
It's right on the front page of
the ones that are about
Google
Obama's
now,
life.
Google News.
the...
Go ahead.
To get Obama.
What?
A bunch of guys tried to get Obama. They caught him.
Somebody-
Yeah, I caught
Some
him.
white supremacist guys.
Some white supremacists were going to do him in. I was
At least
watching him.
that's
He was
the
wading
story.
into
I
the
don't know if
crowd.
that's the truth. That's
Anybody
the
could have a
story.
little camera with a
Yeah,
little
I
thing,
don't believe
like
everything
that.
is-
And
Yeah,
what would
that
happen
mean-
if it happened,
I believe he's in danger just from, like she said, the phenomenon of him doing and presenting any new palatable possibility to the masses gets him that response. And yes, it's good. America needs that no matter who presented it.
Thank you.
Yes, the fact that he happens to be black, okay, great. So maybe
Yeah.
I might feel a part of it. But the point is, like she said, it gets scary that if that's the reason. Here's another angle I noticed listening to what they call this white evangel. They have a name for a certain segment of the white religious evangelists or something.
Evangelicals.
Thank you. I couldn't
Oh,
get it.
well, yeah.
Evangelical,
Yeah, everybody knows, yeah.
Conservative black people. The point I'm saying is when I listen to that whole station, they're not knocking Obama because of his abilities or inabilities. They're not influencing. They say, well, you're not supposed to tell anyone to vote. But when you listen to the whole, each announcer and all this stuff is pushing McCain. Not because he has any abilities or he has demonstrated any abilities or concern for the world or anything. It's simply because, what's her name, Palin is a devout religious person or what have you, and she holds fast to non-abortion, and she has the child that she had, and she's against abortion. So because that's a religious issue, and they're tight with that, and that's not a good enough reason in my little mind to vote for McCain, even if he was good, or if he, and when I say was good, if he had demonstrated in any debate or anything where, never mind Obama, well here, I have this new program and this works for any group. He hasn't presented any new options. So, like she said, it's scary, the people that are just for Obama simply because he's black. It's scary that you have this great big group of quote-unquote white evangelicals who are doing the Berkeley effect or whatever this new thing is they have here.
Bradley.
Telling that they're not going to vote for him, but they're not going to vote for Obama simply because of the religious ties, not because of he's good or bad. And
yeah, he's very
good.
good.
Some of the reasons we're making this choice is, like this young lady just said, it's scary. You know,
Yeah, go ahead and talk.
You just see all these passions over pretty much nothing.
Of two men owned by corporate America.
Yeah.
Boom.
Both are owned by corporate America. Let's get down to real.
Exactly.
And corporate America,
Exactly.
Malcolm's whole thing about the media being being a powerful, scary thing.
It's scary.
Because the media is really right now programming the way in which we think. And this is where I think we come in, because we have to be that third party media which says we're going to break
content.
And that's what I'm saying, to be of courage to say, what is the corporate media? To say, if we saw computer-generated images, you saw the World Trade Center, and there was one moment where you saw an airplane going, supposedly an airplane going in one side and coming out the other. That's crazy.
Well, imploding versus
that's not.
another piece.
You see, the thing about the airplanes, it's so important to realize that no airplanes went into those towers, is because no airplanes, no Muslim scapegoat. Without a Muslim scapegoat, you don't have any pretext for going to war.
Right.
That's what's so
You
important.
needed it.
That's why the 9/11 Truth Movement, by going with the controlled demolition, controlled demolition, a typical conventional controlled demolition, is not going to turn the towers into talcum powder in 11 seconds. We're talking about advanced weaponry.
Something happened, yeah.
And that's why Webster doesn't want to talk about 9/11 anymore, but what was good about having John Galeno, he was in master control when they said to shut it down. So the question then, if you don't want to consider the whole airplane, whether there were airplanes or not, or television fakery, what was going on in master control?
Why don't we find out?
Why were those channels? Why was somebody beating on the door telling him to shut the stations down? Who were they?
Are you sure it wasn't just bureaucratic, follow-up?
I think that's,
Not
that's
anything.
why I'm saying, why we're talking about Obama and McCain, and we're all excited, and then come, November 5th, and everybody's back to...
Exactly.
We should be passionately asking, why were the stations cut? Why were they told to cut?
Why would they be? Why would they?
Who is answering?
Yeah, but we don't know. We're
question?
just a rumor. It's
We
at the
just
level
know
of
we don't
rumor.
know. If we don't know,
Well, why don't we?
nobody's going to give us capital ownership until we say.
Well, now wait a minute.
Until in our mind we know what it is that we don't have.
Well, wait a minute. You're
That's
talking about two
that's
different
wrong.
things. You're talking, with all due respect, you're talking two different things about what went on at a little station in New York City about bureaucratic follow-ups or something compared
This
to.
is not a bureaucratic
Okay,
follow-up.
no, but I'm saying
Where
that's
did
where
the
it
thugs
sounds.
come from
It's
that
just
said,
that.
shut the channels
I don't
down.
care. It
Shut
doesn't.
the fucking channels
Yeah, but
down. Beating on
that's
the
at the
door.
level of rumor.
That's not.
That's
rumor.
one
That's
person's
not
remembering.
rumor.
It
He's
is.
got it on videotape.
Okay,
it was his
good.
Experience.
Well, then why don't we run it down and find out? But that's
Okay,
not. But you
John
said the
Toledo
other
posted,
thing.
Put it up on YouTube.
No,
Let's get it out
fine.
there.
No, that
Tell
can be
Cynthia
done.
McKinney.
That can be done.
Tell
I
WBAI.
wager.
Why
I
is
wager.
WBAI doing the Carl
Well,
Pearson
and I wager there
investigation?
would be
With
a
the city
thing.
attorney general. We need a city attorney general to prosecute
Okay.
for the rights of the people.
All of that
It should
is
be
less
done
important
legally.
than the thing you
Les
just.
Jameson's has no teeth in it. It's
The
going to
less-
evaporate.
the less-
Cynthia McKinney came down there. I was there when I simply tried to announce that I was going to be talking to somebody who had factioned off. I wasn't going to get into the whole thing about the ballot initiatives being different. They tried to push me off, you know, and I don't know if she ever even heard. I don't even know if she knows, but I know that Josh Walensky, when he went to WBAI to see if we could speak with Carl Pearson to talk about the 9/11 ballot initiative that would have the office of City Attorney General. This is another brilliant man, you know, Carl Pearson, very practical.
He's a member of ACAP.
Kind of like you, Louis Kelso, figures out how to get capital on the earnings of future capital for the employees. So
Carl doesn't have
the
that.
idea, no, but he's that innovative mind,
Yeah,
Carol. Somebody
yeah, well, there's
that,
a lot of
that
innovative
knows
minds
the
in this
law
room.
and can see in there.
Yeah.
So Carl Pearson was the one who designed the ballot initiative, the reinvestigation. By the time Cynthia McKinney was standing there, everybody was saving their tape for her, so only one person had me talking for 46 seconds. But that was enough to get me on there for 46 seconds.
46 whole
46
seconds.
seconds, yes. And that was Posar. Posar wished that I had explained even more, but I try to be nice. I try not to step on anybody's feet. I try to find the right time to express it, because these are deep thoughts. You need to have a proper time to express it. So my hope is that Josh and I could go on WBAI and we can have Carl Pearson himself really explain why we need the 9/11 ballot initiative with the Office of City Attorney General, because 9/11 is only one example of a crime against the people that you need to prosecute for the rights of the people, not for their duties, not when they have parking tickets and and you're smoking marijuana and they're keeping the prisons filled like that when you have that's a district attorney.
Well, you
to
need
do that.
workers, so we got
So
that
you need
prison
someone
filled.
prosecuting on your behalf, someone with the resources of the government that's got that kind of firepower that can hang in there in court while you go through all of the steps. That's essential. Why did Dr. Pepper come in and throw that out?
Well, that's
And
interesting.
why does WBAI stay faithful to Les Jameson when if you just look at it, it's not going to work, because the City Attorney General office will fund the investigation. Without that, it means the taxpayers have to do it. So what are the chances if you put it on the ballot, the taxpayers are going to vote for something that's going to involve more taxes? They're not going to vote for it. And if you don't do it that way, then the only people, it's going to be self-funded, so you've got special interests. So whoever took those towers down and has the technology that can turn them into talcum powder in 11 seconds, believe me, those will be the same ones that are going to pack the commission with people who are going to continue to obfuscate it.
Now, how do you take all that, Paula, that you just reeled off, and relate it to the idea that at a level of economic policy that's enunciated by the man who's going to be president of the United States is inadequate with what the planet needs? I mean, it's at a different level.
I just think when we start talking about Obama and McCain and even McKinney, unless we can talk
about Obama, he's
what
going to
the
be
issues
president.
are, Office of City Attorney General excites me, because then I know you're going to create an office through the home rule that's going to prosecute on behalf of the rights of the rights like voter fraud. That
Yeah, but
would be
if they
one.
prosecute and they get truth and they get understanding, if they get all those kind of things, or they get at the truth or something like that, then you're going to have some sort of a transformation at a fundamental level in terms of the way the planet operates. So you threw out the line, and ownership. That's fundamental.
Yes,
The
I
others
agree.
are symptoms of the
I
fact
agree.
that the question that's being addressed
I agree.
is not being addressed by the man who's going to become president of the United States, nor any of the rest of the system, and it's got to come out somewhere. It's going to come out in public access, I believe.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's a major issue.
Also tied, I think she said something that's very important, but not just 9/11.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
just one, because
Exactly.
we got Oklahoma, we can go, got
Yeah.
Katrina, we
Waco.
got Rita, we got the whole
Yes.
criminal justice system that's
Yes.
frightening as hell.
The whole system.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you
that's
know-
what I'm
but you know
saying.
the Office of City Attorney General collects money. You know, every time that there's abuses, I think the other guy for the state has made billions. You know, when Sony doesn't hand in their rebates and things like that, it comes out to a lot of money. You know, New York City doesn't have to have a financial, debt problem. There are ways to do it, and the attorneys, Carl Pearson.
There's not going to be
said-
any way to
and
do
Carl
it.
Pearson started the whole industry of a paralegal.
Yeah,
so
I know.
he knows how to run a school.
Yeah.
So he can duplicate himself.
But with
And
all
and
due
he
respect,
actually has,
well,
he
okay.
has Hopeless, Indiana right now. That's a fake name, but there is a small town where the mayor is buying his program, where he's going to be the town attorney general, and he's going to prosecute on behalf of the rights of the people. So Walmart's not going to take away the jobs, because the Walmart runs in the red. They're losing money. The reason they're losing money is because they're getting a monopoly, and then they're going to pull the noose later.
Also,
So
because people are running them out of a lot of areas too.
Well, that, we
Thank God.
should have more protection, but you need, again, to take it on the local level.
Well,
No, I think everything begins at the local level. I think
wait a minute. Here's Mr. DeGaulle. Let somebody, and we got to get. We're coming. We got 5 minutes, 14 minutes left. We got to get some words from Mr. Volinsky. He's just come in. So, Larry, say something fast. You're very good at haiku. Say something fast, and then we're going to get the words of Mr. Joshua Jericho Volinsky, who has largely brought us all together.
I think we should go straight to Josh and not lose any time, because we don't have much left.
Well, that's one of the wisest things you've ever said, Larry, and I've known you for many a decade.
And one lady over here.
Josh, what do you think? What do you think? We only got a few minutes left, so bring us home. Don't go down. Don't go away, dear.
Partaking in
Okay.
public access for several years and observing it and watching it even before that. There's all kinds of opinions, points of view on public access. And,
Great, isn't it?
And actually, the group that we have here are more enlightened producers. They're doing a great deal of work and so on. But if you remember when Newt Gingrich came in, he had a new perspective for America, a right-wing perspective. And everyone was asking, how come the right wing is so successful? And lo and behold, we discovered that they were organized and that they did have a master plan. Now, if we want to implement some of the things we're talking about, with Obama coming in, we also have to have a master plan, but we also have to know what we want. So, we have to realize that there are several Americas. This morning on Democracy Now!, Amy Goodman discussed the lower middle class and the upper lower class. What about, now Obama has never discussed
Doesn't bring it up.
affordable rental housing.
Only
Never
middle
came
class,
out
yeah.
of his mouth. Never discussed homelessness.
Right.
Never discussed the possibility of doing what Carl Pearson is doing, facilitating free tuition for people with no strings attached.
How many of you? Do you think maybe he's doing? There's a thing, you have to get elected in order to be in power. So you have to be politically saying what is politically able to be understood by the population. Once you get in power, then you can really make changes that are relevant. But you can't bring them up. If you bring up the visionary thing, you'll never get elected because people won't understand it.
When I see people like Colin Powell endorse Obama, that really discourages me.
Really? Why?
Because, well, I know Colin Powell for years. Colin Powell has always supported the liberal establishment, which in America is really a reactionary force. The ones that really make a difference are the radical forces.
You think
The
so?
liberals are just that. They are phony, and when there's real trouble, they run the other way.
Amen.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
So who are our radical leaders that are relevant to the transformation we have to go through as a planetary system in the years ahead?
Well,
Where are the voices?
I do like, as I said, my heart does go to the Green Party, but it also goes out to really progressive politicians like Bernie Sanders and so on. And we have these people around. They have to stand up and they have to galvanize the population. And there has to be a plan on getting affordable housing, affordable health care, affordable education. And I would like people in Paul Gloria's camp or our camp to start focusing on nonviolent communications and discuss why war must become unacceptable as a solution between differences between nations and men.
I think there's something wrong.
Okay, here, let's hear.
And
We
that
only
is-
got about 8 minutes left, so let's wrap it up.
I'll speak very quickly here.
Thanks.
In the 80s, we had something called re-engineering.
Uh-huh.
And there was talk about changing corporations from the people, processes, and things, and systems. And what happened is that processes were changed, systems were changed, things were changed, but nothing happened with the people. And so re-engineering was a big flop. I wrote about it. They told me, oh, listen, I'm not a Harvard professor. What do you know, Meredith? I knew a hell of a lot. I'm hearing the same thing now. I'm hearing this big conceptual changes, planetary changes, binary. I think we need to chunk down and talk about human behavior. Because the only thing that's going to make this change is coming from the human being. And I don't see any evidence that pride is being diminished, that there's synergy amongst people, that greed is being diminished. I don't see collaboration. And I see the Exxons, and I see the Wall Street, and I see the greed, and I see, Paulson, not bailing out a particular company because he's loyal to Goldman Sachs. Come on. And he wants to get rid of Lehman Brothers so that there's no competition. I mean, what does that mean? Look at the effect that it had on the economy. I want to know what can be done for the people, self-development, and archaeological. People are so afraid of themselves that they put on their mask. This is Halloween time. People put on a mask, and it's all this play acting. When are we going to be real and authentic and really care about other people? There's no caring. There's no relationship.
Are
So,
you optimistic for the human prospect?
well, that's a great question. I think that we need to learn how to relate to one another and to accept diversity, not just racially, but behaviorally, and diversity of thinking. We don't have that. We have a holier than thou, we have a critical approach, we have a domination by 10 or 15 people at the top, and then they rule the government. I don't know, it's very, I feel dismal. I'd like to feel more optimistic, but where in the schools, where in the business schools are they teaching the soft skills of leadership and learning how to collaborate and be with each other? I don't know. I'd like to see it happen. It's about communication.
Well,
it's about relationships.
It's about communication. That's
Yes.
public. Do you think there might be a relevant role to a thing called public access television, where the avenues of communication are being open to the people rather than the assigned experts within the canon that's accepted by what has been our leaders throughout history?
I think that we need teachers such as myself. We need receptive people in the audience. We need different parts of the community coming in to bring people collectively so that people are all represented, and it's a combination of communication, of skills. We need leadership. We need values. The kids aren't even learning values at home. Who's teaching the kids values?
Well, don't you think you're getting a whole lot of leadership being emanated? I agreed completely with Mr. Powell when he said that Obama isn't just another politician. He's a transformative figure.
That's,
He is like, people were, he is really something else.
that's his personality, to think very big picture.
Yes.
And he has the capability to integrate the puzzle.
Yeah.
But you watch out when he's under stress. He's I know.
I don't
he's
understand.
outside.
What does that mean when you go, rah, rah, what does
Well,
that mean?
he gets very detailed. You haven't seen this, but Reagan was like this too. I'm not talking politics, I'm talking personality.
Mm-hmm.
When Reagan was upset, he would go from very big picture, and this is documented, to being very detailed, I'll do it myself, righteous indignation, and I make wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's his downside. And so it's wonderful that he is about optimism. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But we also have to understand how did these great leaders lead and then help us to be with each other? I don't see that at all.
You don't see that in him as a leader? My God, I think he's
Well,
a
I'd
huge
like to
leader.
have a president.
Fantastic leader.
I'd like to, but I want to know how grassroots, how's that going to happen?
Okay, we only got 2 minutes left. Anybody got an imperative thing to add? We've only got 2 minutes left. If you got something imperative, really important, haiku, really fast, we only got 2 minutes.
Colin Powell is and what he did. Now, Colin Powell is a remarkable human being because, you know, think of it. He was an African-American, African-Caribbean American who didn't go to West Point. He did not go to West Point. He went to City College. And I know many of the Jewish and Christian cadets who graduated with him. And I know what they did. I mean, I'm still friendly with them. One of them was a commanding officer in Central Intelligence Agency. Danny. Another one is Michael, who was a big shot in the Middle East and all that. And they said, even we don't know why Colin became the head of the Joint Chief of Staff, because he knew two things. He knew how to be in the right place at the right time, and of course I'm the one who used the term, he's a master ass licker, and he knows how to play up to the establishment, but that's got to be one of the answers.
Okay,
because remember, he did not graduate West Point.
Well, that's the problem. He's up from the bottom, and I'm here to tell you.
He graduated a university where the people from Yale, from the Ivy League, are quite disdainful of the city.
Yeah, of the 7. Well, I'm sorry, we've run out of tape.
And too many blacks there.
All right, right. We've run out of tape, and you've had a little bit of thought. There's a couple of ideas.
All right,
we're coming to the end of the tape, everybody, so get ready. Really quick, really quick. Go ahead. Over your shoulder, Paula. Over your shoulder, Larry.
Why
Quick.
is it we've never had a northern president in the United States of America
Never.
since
Uh-huh.
whoever they are got rid of the northern president down in Dallas, Texas?
Well, there's another thought for you to chew over.
They moved the Democratic headquarters and the Republican headquarters out of the north and into the south.
All right, the Southern strategy.
Do you think the good old boys are getting even for Kennedy's, all of his moves of busing and changing the education system and everything else and the social problems that Kennedy and also Johnson implemented?
Well, those of you in
Do
the
you think they have been reversing that or not?
All right, that's it. We're right down to the last wire, so we have to wind it up. Ladies and gentlemen, your viewing audience around the world, this has been an ACAP meeting of public access producers, and it's in the realm of public access that the hope for new transformative ideas that will be able to transform the whole system, liberate the planet within an ecological context, and a context where those responsible for the outdated historical institutions are included in a non-violent communication way. So public access is really important. We all ought to support it, because we ought to get a word in for public access and everybody. And thank you for viewing. And this is the end of the tape, and so we're all caught up with the end of the tape. And I guess we can say good night. I mean, has anybody got it? Anybody want to sing a song? Sing a little, do a little gospel. Yeah, do a little dance. Hey, Coley, do a little gospel. Give us a little gospel. Yay! Sing, my sister. Sing, sister. Amen. Amen.
ideas on binary economics?
Binary economics are up for grabs.
Your idea.
If you got any ideas on binary economics or what it is and everything,
Your name in for capital O.
yeah, right. And this is ACAP. Yay! That's it. The tape. Wait a minute, everybody. Wait a minute.
Do we still
You
have
can
more?
stop talking. The tape stop. No point in talking if the tape isn't going right. You know. Anyway, that's it.
Wait, I got
Oh wait, it's still going. Say something.
Well, I hope Harold gets a new tooth.
I need a new tooth. Yeah.
$10 an inch.
I'm hip, boy. That's the best thing I've heard. And don't forget the materials for the arts.
So I gotta figure out how to get a whole
Yeah, get a whole mouthful. But
Ken.
don't
Well, I'm just going to say goodnight, but we still got 2 minutes. Jackson, what have you got to say? Woof. Well, no, we're not going to hear from Jackson. Yeah, binary economics is where it's at. Yeah, and that's it.
We need the
My pleasure. I got your card and all that. Okay, good. Okay, we're going to have a good time.
Anybody's talking about. If you're not, I gotta know more. We'll send you a kid. You can start spreading it around your country. We gotta use the media to expand. Because all we're doing is talking about illustration, why they're not
How
doing
they
it.
matter, how they affect, how they are as a human being.
You only need a vote.
So are you teaching
In
yoga?
America, you only need 3 votes. Not that that counts. So the people are developed what happens? The top 20. Because people didn't
But you
think.
know what, the people in the town, I am sure, no offense to Obama, he's gonna make over a lot. But let me tell you something, this guy, he's gonna win. I don't think that he has spent 5 hours on any personal development, any introspection at all. And that's given him something. I don't think he spent an hour. Intellectual approach, law school, the big picture idea, perfect. Does he he might have some ideas for America. He might be willing to negotiate with Cuba and Afghanistan and Iran. Does he really know who he is as a human being? And I think this is what's wrong.
Question is, does he care?
No, he doesn't.